I am super excited about my guest this week, Aliki Samone, a dynamic entrepreneur fueled by a blend of science and creativity. After a decade in spacecraft design and program management, she retired from the industry to pursue a life passion and built her own businesses. She developed the Summit Method to be a holistic approach to planning your life. Alakai joins me on the podcast to discuss her book, Conquer Your Summit: How to Build a 5-Year Plan and Live Your Best Life. She joins me today to talk about how she aspires to inspire others to pursue their passions, reaching for the stars with her life experience as a guide. I hope you enjoy the podcast.
Simone.
Alakai Simone.
Yeah.
Okay, Aliki Samone. I didn't put my phonics on my paper, so in the editing process, it will be pronounced perfectly. But I do want you to know I love your name. I shouldn't
Thank
forget
you.
it because I loved it when you said it. I was like, Aliki. That's why I didn't put any phonics with it because I was like, Aliki. I'm not gonna forget that. I'm liking that, and here
It's
I
all
am.
good. It's all good.
So thank you so much for coming on. I am super excited to have you on as a guest today, especially in for our September theme for entrepreneurs and independent thinkers that's wanting to do multiple things and just be able to explore the options that they have available to them. So thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to be here and share a bit of my story, my message, and like you said, hopefully help others out there looking to do something similar.
Yes, yes. We all have a different story. We can all learn from each other. That's the great part about podcasting. I learn from guests all the time. I always like to start the show by asking, what's your mental victory vibe celebration? And that's something that you've done for yourself to pour into your own cup. So, Alakai, what have you done for yourself lately?
I love it. This is a great question that we all need to ask ourselves even more often. But I want to share that I do this thing. I actually started this when I started the process of writing my book, which we'll talk about later. But my mental victory vibe is every morning I get up and I spend 5 minutes meditating. But I'm someone, because they say meditation is very, it's good, it's self healing, it's, good for your mind. But man, staying still and doing nothing for 5 minutes is tough.
Mhm.
And so I actually have added on this whole like stretching thing. So how can I give myself some, self-love, self-care? I take 5 minutes and really dive into deep stretches every morning, clear the mind. It allows me to flow better in my day, release some stress and anxiety, while also hopefully becoming more flexible in the process.
I get that. It can be hard starting out to it was I barely made it 30 seconds when I first started sitting and meditating and my thoughts were all over the place. And at first I initially really thought I was doing something wrong. I really did. And like now it is a peaceful moment. It's so peaceful for me that I put my dog away and Rain is like, I know what you're doing. Can I just sit here? No, because every time I start, you go sniffing off in the kitchen or something. I can't be distracted. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah, you gotta cut out all the distractions,
Mhm.
exactly.
Especially when you have an opinionated dog that want to grunt back and tell you that you're wrong. You know, what's your personal empowerment theme song?
All right, so I don't expect a lot of people to know this song, but it's a song called Overthinker, and it's by an artist called Enzo or Inzo. And it's it's a it's an electric song, so it's a EDM song, but it talks about the mind. It has some quotes from about meditation over the electronic kind of vibe, which
Mhm.
kind of brings you to this like, oh, I'm not just listening to music, I'm hearing about, how to clear your mind and that we all should be more in the present and centered. And then it's just got a lot of those, builds, and like, big music. And the reason why I bring this song is because it doesn't matter if I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, or I need motivation, or I just want to listen to something that makes me want to, dance. This song does that for me. And I mean, I'm a musician, so I love music.
Oh, okay.
But this is definitely something that I can, put on anytime and just kind of clear my mind and feel good.
So that's new because I didn't know about the being a musician. You definitely want to share some of that music with me, girlfriend. Share some of that music. I love music. I do. I love music.
Absolutely.
So tell us your backstory.
Sure. Well, we'll get a little bit into that music there in this.
Mm-mm.
So, I grew up as someone who has right and left brain. Now, we all have, that the creative and maybe the, analytical sides, but some of us have different percentages of that and what we, actually carry in our life. I'm someone who I have a fair amount of both, and that has made my life both very interesting and challenging at the same time. And I say that because I am a musician. So I grew up singing, playing piano, learning guitar. I'm an artist, and I now do murals and a lot of, interior work. And that's all fueled into this creative side of me. I do kind of marketing on the side. I love graphic design, but I was also very good at math, and I really enjoyed, science and, being analytical in life. So I ended up becoming an aerospace engineer, and I studied for that, and I spent 10 years designing and building satellites
Wow.
for my job career, which kind of took me towards I did some program management after running some engineering teams, and I actually went to a startup and became an executive there. And, it consumed a lot of my time. But what's always knocking is, okay, but when are we also gonna do music and also gonna do art? And that back and forth is always hitting in my head. So, yeah, I did find myself at the end of those first 10 years or so in a bit of a kind of toxic, startup kind of environment. And I needed to get away from the corporate life. And it was perfect timing because the right side of my brain was ready. It felt kind of suppressed a little bit in those years in doing corporate, which were great. I learned so much. I love space. I've watched rockets go up, of my own
Mm.
satellites, and it's very fulfilling. But I was very lucky to say, you know what? I'm going to take some time away, build mental health and space, and determine a new course. And the only way I was able to do that was over those 10 years, I had kind of built up a method of life planning so that I could architect this right brain, left brain, right brain, left brain, uh, opportunity. I'm not going to call it a problem, opportunity that I have. And it guided me to focus on art and music. I'm actually recording my album right now, so it's been really great to do that, and writing the book, which we'll talk about, and having all that experience in corporate, but now kind of becoming an entrepreneur and building a new business and seeing what that where that would take me.
Mhm.
And this whole backstory, leads into I I wanted to write all that down, bits of
Mhm.
my story, and more importantly, the method I use to help me find purpose and plan my life when it seems to be kind of all over the place. And so my journey led me to to this podcast.
That is a very interesting background, and it's actually quite relatable because, yeah, it's certain things about, I worked in healthcare in an administrative space, and I still love it. I still love it. I still love talking about risk adjustment and talking about documentation with providers. Like I enjoy it, but at the same time, I always get the nudge. When are we going to take time to be creative? I find that when I'm mostly on edge, it's because I need to go create something. I need to go do something
Absolutely.
creative.
Absolutely.
So I understand that. Yes, very relatable. What is the method to find your purpose? What is it?
That is a great question. And, I feel like, whether it's books or learning from other people or learning from your family members, we all have different methods to think about purpose or definitions of what that is. And so, fundamentally, you have to do what's right for you. But I think that finding your purpose is so important. That is the first chapter in my book, actually. And a method that I use to find purpose is actually there's a step-by-step approach, which, might be counterintuitive because your purpose is supposed to be this spiritual, passionate, thing that drives you. But
Mhm.
it's hard to find. I mean, you can go out and ask a lot of people, "Well, what's your purpose?" And they'll look at you blankly like, "I don't know." "Oh,
Mhm.
have you thought about it?" Yeah, it's hard. I get overwhelmed. I start spinning in my mind and I push it away and go do something else. So try, a method that's a little bit more methodological and see if you can get to the end point. So, if you have you ever done a mind map? If you've never done a mind map, it's basically taking a prompt or a question and putting it in the center of your paper
Mhm.
and then setting a timer for 5 minutes and answering it. Like clearing your mind. There's nothing wrong to say, there's no bad ideas, just write it down. Nobody has to see this. It's just for you,
Mhm.
and you just start writing those ideas off on bubbles. Now, to get to your purpose, in my book I talk about, five or six different mind maps throughout to try and help bring ideas out of your mind. And to find your purpose, you're going to look at what are you grateful for? And take time to look at, you know, what means something to you. Then you're going to talk about events in your life, a separate mind map to talk about things that have affected you. We all have memories, good and bad, that have deeply affected our minds. And we have to kind of take a deep dive into what those were. What did they mean?
Mhm.
Then how do I feel? How do I feel about life, in the last year or thus far? Do I have any deep feelings of passion where, like for myself, I felt, man, I want to record my album. I've been trying to record my album for 10 years. And that passion flows. You were talking earlier how your passion to be creative flows into you and it drives you to want to go do that. So do a mind map to talk about some of those passions. How are you feeling about life? Then what does your ideal life look like? It's important to take some time and just have fun with it and brainstorm where you would like to be, whether or not that's spiritually or financially or in your career or with family. What does that ideal life look like in all those different areas? Once you have all those ideas flowing and you let yourself really spend time thinking about it,
Mhm.
you get to say, okay, my life purpose is to blank. And you start picking out some of those ideas that you came out on your mind map. And then because you have to ask yourself, because, like, why? So my life purpose is blank because.
Mhm.
And the because is really important because, I mean, I could be like, oh, my life purpose is to, you know, do art. Oh, okay. I mean, that's awesome. My life purpose is to make a lot of art. But the why behind it is the emotion that you need, because wanting to do art is not enough to keep me going when times get tough.
Mhm.
Your life purpose or your vision statement is meant to be something that you can put up on your wall and be excited about, be driven by, and want to fuel your mind forward. So you've got to ask yourself the deeper whys. And so the last thing on this whole concept of how do I build and develop a life purpose is I leverage the 5 whys kind of exercise where I ask myself, okay, let's say my life purpose was I wanted to become I should say there's usually not one life purpose. Usually you have, 1 to 3, 2 to 5 separate life purposes because we do have multiple things going on and things that, fuel us. So you down select to a couple and let's say I thought, well, my purpose is I need to become financially free. Well, that's a funny purpose. Like what's really behind that? Well, what's the why? And I was like, oh, well, it's because if I was financially free, I could focus on my art. And we talked about art a little bit earlier. And like, well, why do you want to focus on art? Well, I when I'm doing art, it makes me feel at home. I feed my inner child.
Mm.
I get to create for others. Oh, why does that matter to you? Well, I don't get to do that creative work in my current job, and I feel like I'm not growing with joy in my life. And you get the idea where you just kind of keep asking yourself why on each of these statements. And you start getting to the deeper part of a given item, of a given life purpose statement. And in this case, I'm as I keep asking myself why, I realize, I my life purpose is to free myself of some of these maybe burdens, or you could say become financially free. So maybe I'm not, working 60-hour job and not having time for art, but it's because I want to be able to express myself without inhibitions and, help the world in the process. You just ask yourself why until you get there.
So it's continually going deeper and deeper into, your passion. It's deeper, going deeper in that. And to identify, your time, talent, and treasures. Are you saying this method really works well with that?
Absolutely. Exactly. Because, in summary, the method is give yourself the space to open your mind and put all the ideas on paper, good and bad. Now, look at all those beautiful ideas. Pick 5 of them that resonate. You can even bubble them in different themes and you realize, I've got 5 or 6 things in here related to health. Maybe health is something that's actually really important to me. And now I see that because I've taken the time to visually put it on paper. And then you ask yourself why. And it'll get you deeper to a point of understanding
I
what
really like the
specifically about health.
concept. I
Yeah,
really like the concept because it can work in multiple ways too, especially if someone is seeking to venture into entrepreneurship. It's a great way to do that mind map to really niche down and find out which direction you want to go in. And it's not to say that they have to be strict because that's one thing you have not said. That means that we can have some flexibility in the process. But the other piece to that is too, if you are working and you want to grow in your career, this gives you an opportunity to decide how you want to grow, what do you want to grow, where you want to grow, what direction you want to go in. I really like the idea.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's free form, but it has enough structure so that at the end of the free form, you ideally actually get to a short list of statements that you can write up on the wall and see every day and live, with purpose.
I like it. Make it plain and make it visible. That's just what you're saying. Make it plain, make it visible, make sure you can see it. You know, not a book that
Exactly.
you gotta blow the dust off of. I have some of those. I'm like, I've had this for a long time. You start something, you're like, I'm really gonna do this. And then you get other things start to take priority. And when you get back to it, some dust on it. And you're literally blowing the dust off.
That's right.
It's like,
You blink too long and you wake up and it's 6 months later, so you got
yes, 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 yes. What are some mental tools that are critical to making a change in your life to become awesome?
All right. I like it. So, in my book, I actually separate my book into well, there's 3 main themes throughout it, which is, wait, s segue. I should take a moment to say I just have this book I keep saying that I'm gonna talk about at some point on this.
I think we're talking about
My
it more.
book is called Conquer Your Summit: How to Build a 5-Year Plan and Live Your Best Life. So a lot of everything we're gonna talk about here is pieces of how we're building this awesome life. So that's important. In the book, I talk about mental tools, planning tools, and execution because those are kind of the 3 big steps. And your question feeds directly into what I think is first and foremost before anything, which is setting yourself up correctly in a mental space. And I leverage 3 different items to do that. One, finding your purpose, which we already talked about. Done. You're going to get through that exercise and find your purpose. Second is learning to exercise a positive growth mindset. Third, leveraging a mind, body, spirit exercise. So very quickly on those, the mind is always racing. We are our own mind. I mean, you have thoughts and images and ideas that no one else in the entire world knows and can see because we haven't figured out how to read people's minds yet. I mean, I don't know if that's coming, but right now we're
I'm working
very
on it in
safe
my
in our minds.
lifetime
Yeah.
because I'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. I understand. And so, your mind is both your best friend because of that, sandbox of incredible growth that you can have inside, and also your worst enemy. And
Mhm,
in that, when you are thinking about becoming awesome, we bring ourselves down a lot. When we think about life and plans and or just bad things that you give up, you get angry, you lean into emotions and you get stuck. And the mind is very easy at convincing us to not go to the gym because we're tired,
mhm,
when are we really that tired or is the mind just doing what it does, taking control. So that's why these mental tools are so critical. And the two I use are, positive growth mindset and mind, body, spirit, where a positive growth mindset is choosing to take the time. This one's hard. You have to take the time to change the way you think. If you find yourself someone who has a fixed mindset, which basically means you don't want to change or, you have less open-minded thoughts. Sometimes a fixed mindset person is a perfectionist. As someone who is a former perfectionist, I understand how this happens. But it actually causes you not to be able to grow as much because you want to be perfect or you want to, always, be the best at everything, and it makes it so failure is not an option or failure is scary. But a
mhm,
positive growth mindset is going to allow you to say, you know what? Every opportunity I have is an opportunity for growth and for learning and for
mhm.
changing to become the person I want to be.
So
And
it
you have
gives you an
yeah.
opportunity to embrace those failures as life lessons.
Exactly. Which you can only do if you practice having that open mind. It's so easy for us to shut down things,
Mm,
when we just don't even want to give it the time or day to think about whether or not it's an okay idea. In my book, I talk about how my my boyfriend at the time, but he came to me and asked me, "Hey, we've got some financial things that we're trying to figure out and plans we're trying to live for. Let's move into an RV. Let's move out of our home and into an RV of 200 square feet, sell all of our stuff, become minimalist, and hunker down for 2 years to save money so that we can get on this dream of, buying a house and, having a certain life." I was like, heck no. I mean, talk about fixed mindset. It was just like, no, moving on, next conversation, going on. And that was previous Alakai. But, if I carry more of a positive growth mindset, I could stop and say, okay, I understand why there's negativity flowing in initially, but let's look at the positives and have a conversation about what this would be and what this would look like. We actually did do this. And I talk about this whole journey throughout my book of all kinds of crazy things that have gone throughout my life. The book has themes of climbing actual mountains, which is why it's called Conquer Your Summit. And it kind
mhm.
of brings this beautiful creative imagery into the process. But yeah, and so you have to leverage a mindset change muscle where you take scenarios where maybe you reacted intensely and you practice in your mind. Okay, how could I see that differently? You know,
Mhm,
real quick, you said these books, right? That we had to blow the dust off of. You got to change your mindset to saying, oh, okay, I'm excited to pick up this book today. Let's do it. Let's get forward, rather than I'm not saying you do this, but rather than thinking of the burden of picking up, a book that has got dust on it at this point. It becomes a burden, but if we choose to change our mind and leverage positive mentality, we can become more awesome in life.
I really like what you're saying because I think that it leads into character strengths. And I'm really big on the strengths and the virtues by the VIA Institute. They're based in Ohio. And it talks a lot about, like you mentioned, temperance, the virtue of temperance, by walking through some of the character strengths that are there: forgiveness, prudence, humility, and just going through it and really opening your mind. Because, like with the RV example, and you're like, heck no, that would have been me too. And I would have had to think about, okay, well, what type of limiting belief do I have to think that that's not for me, that I can't do
Right,
that?
right.
Or failure is not an option. Well, that's social intelligence and it falls in humanity. What have I, what is going on with me that I feel like failure is not an option when failure is really growth? And I love how it ties into that. I really do. What was the
Absolutely.
basis of really, was the basis of writing these foundational methods in your book really geared from your transition from corporate America, or was it something that you were just like, I know you talked about, hey, I had to put it down, I had to write it. But
Yeah, absolutely. The short answer is no. It was not based on my transition from corporate America, but it definitely was a huge part of doing that. So the method goes through 4 areas of success, and that's personal growth, financial freedom, career, and community. And basically, I started out, I got out of college, starry eyed aerospace engineer, ready to conquer the world. And life was so much different now, working. I I worked before, but now I'm not in school anymore. It's just a totally different world becoming an adult, if you will.
mhm,
And it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to get, and maybe you're someone who's like, I got to climb the ladder. I'm just going to focus down and get there. Or I just want to travel the world one day. How do I get there? And you, wherever you are in life, it doesn't, I'm using an example when I was young out of college, but you could be anywhere, any point in your life, and you may find yourself having a lot of dreams and goals and asking yourself, how do I get there? Or worse, not asking yourself how you get there, and you're just spiraling in your mind with wishes, and it's bringing kind of sometimes negative energy. So what happened was, 10 years ago or so, I developed a method called the Summit Method. Now, did I sit down and say, I'm going to develop a method and this is what it's going to be? No, it evolved, right? And it started with that RV conversation,
wow.
where we ended up getting the RV and we said, we're going to go do a retreat. And we went by the ocean on California One over by Santa Cruz, and we parked kind of on the side of the road right on the water. And we said, we're going to spend this entire weekend thinking about life and writing it down and figuring out how to build a 5-year plan. We, in that moment, my boyfriend and I, now husband, we built this 4 areas of success. We said these are the things that matter. Personal growth. You matter. You are you, and if you can't, if you don't figure out yourself and what you need to do, and I don't mean this in any kind of selfish way, but you can't serve others and you can't do what you want in life if you don't take a moment to center yourself and make sure you know what you need and what you want.
Mhm,
So personal growth is very important with that respect. So we built all of our thoughts and ideas for the next 5 years on personal growth, which personal growth includes, health, fitness, spirituality, education, anything you want to do that's, for you. Doesn't mean it can't include others, but it's, really your passions. And then we said, well, the world, unfortunately, does revolve around money in
it's
some way, shape, or form. So let's not put that too far down on the list. Let's talk about financials. This is the one that I think it requires the most amount of that mental strength. And it's
mhm,
why I think the mental tools in my book are so important, because you get to the financials, and sure, there are people out there who have beautiful financials. But usually, regardless of whether you have a lot of money or a little money, it it's complicated. You get new problems no matter what level of financial you are in. And these problems, they come into our minds and they erode, on our health. So let's tackle financial. Let's build out our financial plan for the next 5 years. Where do we want to be? What does it look like to get there?
Mhm.
Well, to get there, we probably need a job that's going to give us some income so that we can make that vision happen. And that could be gig economy or, I mean, artists, musicians, whether I'm not talking everybody needs a 9 to 5, crazy corporate job. A career is what you do in exchange for money, whatever that might be. So let's plan that out and look at your career. And then let's close with community, not because people are last, but because you your community is what centers you and holds you up and encompasses your life. And we often forget how important the people around us actually are to making everything happen. So I always put community last. So it's a circle. You end with looking at your community, your family, your friends, your external, your coworkers, smiling and waving at the cashier at the grocery store, being a part of your community and choosing how you want your mental space to be so that you can circle back to your personal growth and just keep going on that cycle. And that is how I built out this method, because those 4 pillars were important to me back in the beginning 10 plus years ago. And we
Mhm.
realized every 3 months we needed to keep looking at that plan. And it grew and it grew and it grew to a point where, yes, when I exited my corporate job within aerospace and I decided I wanted to write a book because I'm named after a children's book author and I wanted to write a book one day, it was immediately clear to me. It just clicked. I should actually write a book about the method that we have created to help others. I would love to share my method so that other people can leverage this, especially those who are entrepreneurs. I feel entrepreneurs have a lot going on in the mind. Sometimes they have
Girl.
like 10 businesses they want to create. They need
Sometimes I wake
focus.
up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, I immediately start writing.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that's a kind of long answer. And I met some other pieces in there I wanted to talk about regarding the, personal growth and financial career and community. But the process was created not from leaving my job, but actually throughout my entire journey. And leaving my job was just, you know, the final step to getting it on paper and articulating it in a way that I felt could actually help people with their lives.
I really like the story. I like how it came about. It started with the RV. It
Yes.
started with the RV.
Which I lived on the streets in this RV for 2 years. We parked outside of our company because and I lived in the Silicon Valley, San Francisco area, and this was a very common thing that people would just be like, "I'm gonna be a minimalist and I'm gonna commute wherever I need to go and do what I need to do," and it was crazy. It really was.
It sounds like it, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued.
Yes. The stories, many of them.
Yes, because what you learn about yourself when you shrink everything down, when you pare down, you learn a lot about yourself. So I'm
Absolutely.
intrigued. What is a 5-year plan? You've
Sure.
mentioned it quite a lot. You've mentioned it quite a bit as you're talking about personal growth, financial, career, and community. Let's talk about it. What's that 5-year plan? What is that?
Absolutely. So, okay, a 5-year plan. I think we're all, okay, I get it. It's a 5-year plan. You sit down and you think about the next 5 years. People doing
That's the
business, people,
generalization.
yeah, it's a generalization. And the other generalization that comes with that is most of the time, if you ask that question, hey, do you have a 5-year plan? And someone's gonna be like, no, well, I, who does
I'm just
that?
trying to
Do
make it
people
through the
actually
day.
make Do people actually make 5-year plans? I mean, the short answer is not very many people make 5-year plans. And it has this kind of, stigma that it's you don't need it. That's a silly thing to do. And, really you should plan differently. You know what? I get that. And I think the pieces that come in that mentality have to do with how am I going to know what I'm doing in 5 years? Why I should just, plan more near term. So, first and foremost, a 5-year plan is making a trajectory, a thought process for the next 5 years. So you have a guide, not a strict thing that you have to follow. So get all those ideas of 5-year plans out of your head and just say, you know what? It is wise for me to look forward 5 years so that I can make sure that some of the big things in life are thought through. My perfect example is children. I mean, sure, some people heavily plan to have a child, some people don't, and there's a whole spectrum between there. But, if a lot of people will be like, "Do you want to have kids?" And they're like, "I don't know, someday." Well, eventually, you get to a point where medically you can't have children anymore. So if you just keep putting off the conversation of whether or not you want to have kids, you will get to a point where you maybe can't. So that's a conversation where if I use the next 5 years and I use my age and my dates, I can go, oh, wow. I now suddenly am enlightened that I should consider having kids in the next 3 years. Whereas before it was always in the
Mm,
future. And so I use the example of kids, but 5-year plan is a method you can use to take day day one, your now, your current state,
mhm,
and yourself 5 years down the road and say, what are the big goals and dreams that I would like to see for myself in 5 years? Now, is it like 4.5? Is it four? That's doesn't have to be 5 years on the dot, but it's in that general long-term period. What are the big goals? And then you create what I call the planning sandwich, which is
mm,
a sandwich. You got your two bread pieces. Your bread slices are your current state, and the top bread slice is all of those big dreams and goals you have for yourself in about 5 years. Now pick out all the ingredients in the middle. And that means if your big goal is to, let's say for me, I'm trying to record my album. If I have a big goal to say, I want to record my music album in 5 years, what do I need to get there? So it's easy to think that a 5-year plan is just thinking in the future and seeing what you want to accomplish in 5 years. It's much harder to figure out actually how to do that, which my book actually goes through detailed steps and it has templates to follow to help you get through those plans. You basically are going to take those big ideas and break them down. Okay, what are the mini steps or the mini goals to get to recording my album? Well, I probably need to how many songs do I want? All right, I have 13 songs. Okay, do I have those songs? No, I have half of them. I'm making this up but live, but architect each year a mini goal that's going to get you to your end goal. And that's your planning sandwich. It sounds so simple,
oh,
but
this takes a lot of time and a lot of thought.
it's we don't do it, right? And all I'll say is on the question of like why do this? Why think about a 5-year plan? I talk about building a 2-year action plan to give yourself some more details and how
Mhm.
to execute and then your quarterly goals to get there. Why? Because when you go to the grocery store and you don't have a list, what happens to you?
You overspend. I see so many videos on TikTok about my Target trip. I went for one thing, $300 later. Like, it's true.
Exactly.
I'm very list oriented when I walk in Target.
Exactly. And then when you plan ahead of time and you write out a list for the grocery store, and then you go into the grocery store, do you buy every single thing on that list and only that list?
For me, yes. Because
Exactly. That's
yeah, because if it's not on the list and you're like, "Well, what about this?" I'm like, "It wasn't on the list. That's why I don't have it. Next time, make sure it's on the list." Yes. Yes, I
exactly.
do.
Now, someone like you is going to be able to take a 5-year plan and now see clarity and vision and go execute on that. Now,
Mhm.
get to those goals and dreams. But The best part about the list for the grocery store is oftentimes the answer is still no, right? You're going to get 95 and maybe even 100% of everything on that list, but you can still pick up other things
Oh,
if
yeah.
you really
That
wanted
happens.
to. And
That used
that's
to
my
happen.
closing, I guess, on the whole why a 5-year plan is important. Because if you don't plan, you're going to go overspend or overdo or underdo. You're not going to do what you probably really should do or want to do because you went to the grocery store hungry without a list. But if
Well,
you
or
have
you
a
went with
plan,
kids, because
yes,
when I would
yes,
go with my
yes.
kids, the list would grow. Things that weren't on it because they were throwing stuff in the buggy, you
Exactly.
know? And I realized, "Oh, I don't need to go with you guys."
There you go. Exactly. But if you have that 5-year plan or you have that list, it allows you to stay on target and you can be flexible enough to add in a bag of popcorn or whatever, might make you happy that day
I
and still
love
be
it.
on course. And that's the point.
Flexibility, revisiting it. Like, you have to go back and revisit it. You have to go back and make some tweaks and some revisions, but do so with grace. Give yourself grace.
Exactly.
I love it, but I'm a planner, but I'm a vision board planner. I have 4 vision boards up right now for different things,
I
and I
love that.
go and pull my notes off. Like, it's not a vision board where I just stick it on there and it's just there. I have those too. Those are in my closet, but the ones in my office, the
Well, I mean,
sticky
that's
notes I
music to my
replace.
ears. I love that you have 4 vision boards. I mean, that's perfect. Because the
And I
last
go
part of
back.
my you gotta go back. I love it. The last part of my book is about execution. Like we just talked about kind of the planning techniques, which go over exactly how you make a plan. But execution techniques are about how you keep that motivation going
Mm,
and visualization. I mean, there's many examples in the book, but because you mentioned vision boards, visualization is definitely number one in my book. And what I tell people is it's as simple as taking those 3 to 5 central goals because in my book you do a big 5-year plan and some detailed 2-year action planning, and then you get to these like quarterly goals that are really driving you because you can't look at your 5-year plan every day. How do you look at it every day? Well, you look at it every day by knowing the the sub bullets, right? The 3 to 5 central things that are
mm,
feeding from that plan. And you write them down and you put them on your nightstand. You put them on the mirror in your bathroom. You put them on
mm.
next to your front door. I don't care where you put them, but it needs to be somewhere where you're going to see them every day. And I leverage a journal. I don't actually do a lot of, writing in the journal, but I open it up and I look at my affirmations. I look at my vision board that I've written in the journal. I look at my 3 to 5 goals. I see every day that this is the focus, and visualization is key. And it doesn't mean that every single day of my life I got to work on that. That's not the goal. It's not about stressing you out. It's back to the grocery list. It is a guide so that you know that this is the path you're on. This is what you want to be doing. And you're going to remember that throughout the day. But if you don't
Mhm.
put it up there, like I said earlier, you're going to blink. 6 months is going to go by. You make no progress and ask yourself, why is my life not going the way I want it to be? Why are my businesses or my entrepreneurial ideas not coming to fruition?
I
Because you're
like
not
it.
putting focus in your life. Bring focus with visualization.
I love the focus because I so relate to it, especially starting out as an entrepreneur. There's so many things that you don't know. You're overwhelmed by all the things that you don't know and some of the things that you have to do as well. And
Absolutely.
one of the reasons why the boards are so important to me with the sticky notes is I can actually zero in on each step. I can zero in on each step and I look at it. Oh yeah, I did that step. And I change. If I've done that step or if I know that it's other things that's part of that step, I pull that sticky note off and add the steps that I need to get to the ultimate step. Because without it, I feel scattered. I feel scattered.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's
I like
I
it.
just love it. I love all your vision boards. That's exciting.
I love it. What advice would you give your younger self to cultivate self-trust?
It's a good question. Um, I I did not, I feel like sorry, today, I feel like I have a lot of confidence, and reality is sometimes you just need time in life to gain confidence.
Mhm.
But had I had more confidence, or more passion in my younger life, maybe I would have been able to get through some of the difficult times better, and maybe succeed in a different way. And so my advice is actually be open to failure. How could I have, right? Or how could I help other youth today learn to have an open mind and be open to failure and not, I mean, it goes back to my whole positive growth mindset, but when we fear failure, we don't grow.
Mm,
We hide from it. And it doesn't help us. And it's so hard, right? You can't be like, I wish I was just okay with being embarrassed or not succeeded in something or, dealing with the bumps along the way. But I wasn't. And I wanted to control everything. And, I think it held me back in certain ways. And
mm,
I now have that. I now have the ability to take a small, deep breath when something goes wrong and say, it's going to be okay. We're going to move on and we're going to
I
do
love
something
it.
greater. I wish I had more of that. And I give that to youth to just try failure and think of it with a more open mind that ask yourself, what am I going to learn or grow from this event or
Mm,
this happenstance?
I love it. I love it. Where can me timers find your book?
Awesome. So my book is on Amazon. So if you use Amazon, that's a easy way to get it, whether it's Kindle or buying the paperback. But it's also on Barnes and Noble or pretty much wherever you should grab your ebooks or books these days.
Mhm.
Yeah, I also have a website, so conqueryoursummit.com. And there's plenty of info there on how to contact me, or you can actually click on the links. It'll take you to places to buy the book from there. Or you can follow me on social media at Aliki Samone Books throughout Instagram, TikTok, or whatever your platform is. And I'd love to hear from you or, see how the book maybe helps your life. And
I
yeah,
love it. So I'm so glad that you were on as a guest today. Definitely touched on a lot of the things that I enjoy for sure. I was straight up geeking out over here because it's me. Like I'm like, yes, I do that. Yes. But I also want to extend an additional invitation to you because as Mind Escape Vibe, as Me Time with Mind Escape Vibe scales up, I want to do panel discussions and I want to have 4 or 5 guests on and we chop it up and stream it on YouTube. And I hope that you'll consider coming back and sitting on as a panelist.
absolutely. I would love that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I am excited for that vision that you have.
Oh,
Wow,
yes.
I haven't thought about that panels and doing. Where are you on that part of your
So
journey thus
the
far?
planning starts in Q4. I've already started to think about, okay, logistically, I have to send emails out, talk to people, and get things done. So I'll probably start really hunkering down on it at the end of September because I want to put out the first one January, February on YouTube. So um we can
Cool.
just chop it up. I think I've met so many great people. Let's bring them together. Let's and chop it up. I think it's going to be a great time.
You're
So
on the cusp of something new. I mean, podcasts are great. I love podcasts. I enjoy listening to people's life and their, stories, but that's next level. That's how, there's so many podcasts now or people have the podcast they like. Now we need these cool panels bringing people together for that. I
yeah.
love it. I love
Oh,
it.
girl,
That is
that's just
that
me
is cool.
channeling my inner Oprah. That's my inner Oprah that I channel when I come up with those ideas. I be like, okay, well, what would Oprah do? And then when I think about my business, I always say, what would Madam CJ Walker do? These are questions that I ask myself quite often. So thank you so much for
Of
coming
course, of
on. I
course.
look forward to having you on as a panelist. I'm so geeked about it. I can't wait to start reaching out and getting the first lineup done.
That's
So
really
thank you
exciting.
so much.
Of course.
I look forward to having the book in my hand.
I've got this, and,
You know,
it's gonna being sent your way, so
yes,
it's,
I am super excited. All right, me timers, you heard it here first. And I am so excited about this book and the 5-year plan and just being able to tap into those 4 things: personal growth, financial, career, and community. You heard it here first on Me Time with Mind Escape Vibe. Where does your time to be kind to your mind? Have a great day now.